Hello there, friends, and welcome back to Sesh Cast. My name is GLDLX. This is Sesh Cast, a cannabis podcast for cannabis sessions, and today I am a little fired up. I'm a little upset about the state of the world, and I'm going to talk about that for a little while. It is also midnight on Wednesday, and I work at 8 a.m. on Wednesday. So I'm going to power through this recording real quick, and I'm going to go to bed. But hello, this is Sesh Cast. I can already tell this is going to be sort of a rambly, weird, out there episode. Partially, probably because I'm high. I'm quite high currently, and I'm smoking on Jack Herrera, which is the most sativa thing that I've got. So I'm a little racy, definitely a little bit racy. My chair is very squeaky. I'm sitting in my room, not where I typically record. I'm really crushed for time this week trying to get an episode out, which is why I'm in this situation. Just all in all, things are a little weird right now, so bear with me. And I hope you enjoy this episode anyway. If this is your first episode of Seshcast, thanks for coming to hang out. This is a cannabis podcast where I get high and talk about stuff. And today, if you can't tell from the episode title, which it's not super clear this week, we're going to talk about this whole permit patty situation that is sweeping the internet by storm, partially because, analytics and SEO stuff, and that's what the internet wants me to talk about, but mostly because I have a really sincere opinion and I care a lot about this issue. Yeah, we're in a really interesting situation here, and I want to talk about it for a little while, so we'll get to the talking about the actual stuff here in a couple minutes. First, let me say that I am smoking on Jack Herrera still. I'm high on Jack Herrera, and I'm smoking on Jack Herrera. Sativa strain, very good. It's got a very, earthy, pretty straightforward, almost a little pine sol taste to it. I like it a lot. It's a very, very uplifting and fast strain. That's one of the best ways I can describe it. I think that, everybody has their own way to differentiate between indicas and sativas. And for me, I really think that, sativas are fast, indicas are slow. That's just the way I feel about those two things. But it's very quick strain, and it's very uppity, and it's got me very racy and very opinionated. And I am smoking today out of a brand new pipe. I just got this. I'm super excited to be using this. This is a brand new Glass Mechanic piece. I grabbed this at a festival that I was hanging out at, and it is gorgeous. So Glass Mechanic is the name of the artist. I believe his Instagram is just at the Glass Mechanic. I totally am going to work on looking that up right now. So if I seem a little distracted, it's because I want to make sure that I get that right. But I am pretty sure that this is just from the Glass Mechanic on Instagram. I am the Glass Mechanic, that's what it is. The Glass Mechanic on Instagram is the artist behind the spoon. It's beautiful. I doubt that the picture I put on Instagram is going to do this any justice, but I'm going to try real hard to get a really pretty picture. The color work in this is phenomenal, just beautiful. Oil spill and glass lotus flower, and there are a lot of things that come to mind to try to describe this color pattern, and I can't put it into words, but it's amazing. I mean, it's got blues and silvers and golds and greens, and there's this hint of purple and just auburn. Oh, it's gorgeous. Beautiful pipe. It's got this real nice shimmer to it. I don't think it's dichro. I think it's just kind of a natural little shine, but it's beautiful. I love this piece. Very, very comfortable, really interesting shape. It's got this weird sort of nozzle piece to it, and it's almost shaped like a bubble carb cap. The neck is, but it's got, the reason I got it was in a group of about 8 pipes that were all of this color pattern and this design. And this one just was very unique in the way that the neck was shaped, so I grabbed it. I really like it. It's got sort of the extended carb that I'm into, that some of my other pipes have. So yeah, I'm super happy to have it. Super excited to use it for the show, and the picture will be on my Instagram. That is at SeshCast, all one word. That is where I post the pictures of all the glass that I smoke out of for the episode. So feel free to follow me on there and shoot me a DM and say the hellos and do all the things and yada, yada, yada. I'm going to go ahead and hit this now, and then we'll get into some stuff. So, cheers. I'm also going to crack open this sweet ale 8 that I've got. I don't get this stuff very often. I'm always happy when I have it. It's old, so it's a little flat, but it's still ale 8. I'm still happy. Ah, man. Sativa and caffeine right before I go to bed. I'm sure that's going to go well. So, let's talk about why I'm here today. I don't know why you're here today, but thanks for coming either way. Why I'm here today is because I want to talk about this whole permit patty situation. So let me give you a backstory if you don't know what I'm talking about or if this doesn't seem familiar to you. Basically, this last weekend, and I'm going to date this episode, and I don't care. This last weekend, a video came out on Instagram and very quickly onto Twitter as well. And I think it eventually made its way to Facebook, but that's the last place to get videos. Of this woman who is calling the police on an 8-year-old girl for selling water outside of her apartment. That is, I think, the basic, the basic breakdown of this, because there's a lot of details, and the more layers of the details you get into, the more interesting this whole situation becomes. And I'm going to explain why I'm talking about this here in a little while, because this I think really is going to end up having a bit of an implication about the way the cannabis industry moves forward and the way the cannabis industry is seen. And I'm going to talk about that here before the end of the episode. But I want to give you a breakdown, and the way that I want to go through this is sort of to add the pieces of this story piece by piece. And I'm going to say out loud that I'm sort of doing it in an intentional way to sort of guide the way you consider the situation. Form your own opinion of what I mean by that. But so here we go. There is a woman. She is calling the police because a girl is selling water outside of her apartment. Now, this girl is 8 years old. She is selling water bottles for $2 a bottle, and she allegedly is selling these water bottles to help save money to pay for her trip to Disney World. Okay. This woman comes outside, calls the police for some reason because this girl is selling water. Here is where the details start to split up a little bit. It has not really been confirmed what exactly the conversation that this woman who has become known online as Permit Patty had with the police. According to Permit Patty, in one article, she claims that she called them to see if it was legal for this girl to sell water there or not. The other article says that Permit Patty never actually called the police. Well, she says in this interview that she never actually called the police. She mocked calling the police. Then the third opinion, which comes from the other two parties who are not Permit Patty, but the mother and the daughter, and I think maybe the aunt of this girl was involved too, but that part is less important. They claim that she was calling the police on the girl for selling water without a proper sales permit. Okay, so now we've hit the conflict of this story. There is a girl selling water bottles, and a woman is calling the police on this girl. Let's talk a little bit about how this woman came to this situation, according from what we know from the research that I've done. And I'm pulling from, right now, CNN, I'm pulling from San Francisco Chronicle, so a local news source. I'm also pulling from NBC. I am did not find like a Reuters, excuse me, that was hard to say, or an NPR article for this. But I'm trying to be very factual and very unbiased in this because I have my own biased opinions to give, and I want to give them at the end. So now, let's talk about how this woman got to the point of calling the police. According to the research that I have done, what Permit Patty says is that she was working in her home with the windows open. She was working on a tight deadline. This girl and her aunt, or this girl and her mother, depending on which article you read it's kind of interchangeable. It's weird. I think what I've garnered is that this girl was out with her aunt, but her mother is also involved, but was not there when the situation happened. Again, the most important. So, Permit Patty is working on a deadline in her house with the windows open. This girl and her guardian are yelling, bottles of water, $2, being loud. It is causing an issue for Permit Patty. So she goes downstairs, and this is again where things get split. According to Permit Patty, she tried to tell the guardian of this girl to please keep it down, and that's when it escalated. According to the mother, guardian, aunt of the girl, Permit Patty came right outside and demanded to see this girl's permit, and then called the police. So that's, again, another split. We don't know exactly what's going on there yet, because the viral video picks up after she is already on the phone. So, for some reason, this woman has called the cops, either because of a noise violation or because this girl was selling water. Or what Permit Patty said was to figure out if it was legal for this girl to sell the water, or she never actually called the police. She was just, trying to intimidate. Sort of the situation we're at now. So that's the story. I'm going to go ahead and take a hit, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to feed you a few more details, and we're going to get into where I'm really going with this. But now you have the backstory, and I'm going to smoke some weed. So I hope that everything is going well for you. I hope that things are good. I hope you are also smoking. If you are, cheers. If you're not, cheers anyway. I hope that your day is going well, and, whatever it is. I hope things are good. I hope things are good. Cheers. Okay, so the details you were most certainly waiting for, or already knew if you're familiar with this situation. It's 2018. Let's talk about race. Permit Patty, if you didn't guess, is a white woman. The girl selling the water and the guardian, both black. Okay, there is our first piece of information, at which point this becomes a polarizing issue. Because now we are in this situation of, did this woman call the cops because noise violation? Did this woman call the cops because illegal to sell without a permit? Did this woman call the cops to find out if it was illegal? Did this woman call the cops, did this woman not actually call the cops and just do it to intimidate? And did this woman do any of those four things because that girl was black? Now we have a new question. Now we have this new issue, this new thing that we have to discuss as to whether or not this woman is crazy or, overreacting because of the law or because of the race. And that's a really big question. Not one that I'm really going to try and answer, I think, because I'm not sure that it matters. I think in 2018, we're at a place where if a white person calls the cops on a black person, it does not necessarily have to be because of a race thing to then turn into a race thing. Now, let me clarify that what I just said, I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. I'm not trying to say that, like, white people have it hard because they can't call the cops on black people. That's not what I'm saying. Let's be rational, okay? This is a middle-aged woman. They don't give her age. I haven't dug deep enough to find her age. Younger middle-aged woman calling the cops on an 8-year-old girl. Okay, we already have an interesting situation here. Now let's add in the difference in race. Of course, it's going to come up as a topic of conversation. Whether or not Permit Patty called the cops because this girl is black does not really matter, because she is black, and now that's part of the conversation. I hope that makes sense. I hope that I just got across what I was trying to, like, convey. It took me a little while to get there. I'm a little high, but, like, basically, whether or not Permit Patty meant to call the cops on her because she was black, or intentionally called the cops on her because she was black, does not necessarily matter. What matters is that she is black and Permit Patty is white, and that is now part of the conversation. Because that's the part of the world that we live in. That is the part of the timeline that we are all unfortunately stuck in. So, the next piece of information that is important here is that Permit Patty is not actually named Permit Patty. Her actual name is Allison Ettle. She is the CEO and founder of Treatwell, which is an incredibly large and incredibly successful pot company. She sells weed. Treatwell is a company that creates edibles, makes edibles, markets, sells, distributes edibles for both people and for animals. She does a lot of CBD mixes. She does a lot of tinctures. Like, that's her main gig. That's the story with Treatwell. So, now let's take both of those pieces of information and put them together, and let's please acknowledge a very large irony here that is the real reason that I'm talking about this. Now we have a white woman who sells weed calling the cops on a black girl for selling water. All right? There's a lot to unpack there, and there shouldn't be, but there is. So let's dive in and let's start talking about it. Okay? It is very clear. I've talked about it a lot of times. I talked about it in the legalization episode. I've ranted about it on Instagram. I will happily rant to your face about any of this. That a huge part of the reason that marijuana was made illegal was to sweep minorities off the streets. Period. That is undeniable, stated as fact by the people who made marijuana illegal. Look it up. So, we already have an incredibly disproportionate number of black Americans in jail for selling weed versus white Americans in jail for selling weed. And it's a pretty astronomical disproportion. I didn't pull the numbers out, and I'm sorry. I didn't think that I would need them, but my brain took me here. So look up the numbers on your own. Believe me, they're real. I just didn't look them up. So today, I literally, this is weird, but I reamed somebody on Instagram about this. So I've done all this research before. I just didn't pull the research for this episode because I wasn't really planning on talking about it. So my apologies. I'm not going to sit here and pull them all up for you because I know that you can look them up yourself if you really care. Because at the end of the day, if you don't care what the numbers say, you won't look at them, whether I post them for you or not. That's facts. So there is a disproportionate number of black Americans in jail and, Latin Americans and really any minority Americans in jail for selling weed over white people for selling weed. So we have a white woman doing a thing specifically made illegal to sweep minorities off the streets. And that white woman is calling the police for some reason because a minority girl is doing a more legal version of what she is doing. Because it is still federally illegal to sell weed. And this woman's got a company for selling weed. So she's doing something that is what has actually become white people legal. There are a lot of things that have become white people legal. I mean that white people can do them and nobody else can. And it's a fucked up situation. And I try my best not to use a ton of profanity in this show, but it's fucked. White people can get away with shit that black people can't, like selling weed. Period. That's a perfect example. Do you know how many CEOs of color there are in the cannabis industry? Shockingly few. Actually, that's a lie. It's not shocking at all. There's still few. It's a white people game, man. Because the governing bodies, the police force, everybody, the DEA, everything, has decided that it's more important to stop black people from selling weed than it is to stop white people from selling weed. You know what? I'm not even going to begin to explain why that may be. It just is. And it's obvious. It's in every number. It's in every anecdote. It's in every episode of Cops. It's just real. And it's fucked. So, this is a big, big, big moment for the cannabis community right now. Permit Patty, Allison Ettle, has finally brought this issue of like really severe, not even to the point of institutionalized, like just racism into the cannabis space. And again, it doesn't matter if Allison Ettle is racist. It doesn't matter if she called the cops because this girl is black. What matters is that this situation happened. Those are the facts of the situation. And at the end of the day, facts cause debates, not opinions, not feelings, not emotions. Like, what causes debate are facts. Emotions and opinions cause fights, but facts cause debates. And in 2018, debates cause fights. So, the cannabis space, in this new wave, this new situation of weed becoming popular and pop culture, has done a really good job of staying away from the race situation and keeping it very open to everybody on a large scale. I know that there's still a lot of racism in the industry. There's still a lot of racism in the cannabis space. There's a lot of goddamn racism everywhere. That's fucked too. But as far as things like, pro sports, NFL, looking at you, kid, or Hollywood, or like Fortune 500 company, like there are a lot of other industries with way more outward racism than the cannabis space. The community as a whole has remained very open. Not the most, it's not perfect, I know it, but as far as industries and communities go, we're not doing too bad. But here we have our first major issue, friends. Here we are. The cannabis space has been asked if it's racist or not. And we got to make a call. And we're going to have to stand on one side of this or the other. And I'm going to talk about what side of this I think I'm going to be on after I take another hit. So, cheers. So, we've got to decide what side of this we're going to live on here. And I'm going to... oh gosh, excuse me, I knew it was coming. I'm going to take a drink now. The music will still be rolling. Obviously, you knew that the music was still rolling, but I needed to tell future me, so I remembered to leave the music rolling when I was editing. But we're going to have to decide what side of this debate we're going to land on, and I'm going to give you my opinion after I tell you the fallout from this event. So here we go. Allison Ettle has officially stepped down as the CEO of Treatwell. That happened after a number, like, as far as I can tell, at least 8 dispensaries in the San Francisco Bay and California area dropped Treatwell products. And most of those companies that dropped Treatwell donated the rest of the profit from their remaining inventory to nonprofits around their California communities that use money, that spend money or like focus on Wow, I'm really struggling to get this across because I don't have a definition in front of me and I need a sentence that somebody else wrote. Nonprofit organizations that encourage young entrepreneurs. Oh my God, I'm so high. Maybe I can just find this written somewhere. They are donating their profits to nonprofits designed to forward education and encourage young girls of color and young kids of color to get into entrepreneurship, or if they're driven. Gosh, why can't I just I'm scrolling so ferociously. I'm so sorry, friends. I should really be able to just, speak. And I can't. They're giving money to causes that help the black community and help young girls, like this 8-year-old who is trying to get to Disney World. See, if I just tell you what it is, I can do it. That was rough. I'm back now. So they're donating their they're donating the profit of their leftover stock, which is great. And a lot of people have been pretty heavy-handed on Permit Patty and on Treatwell and on the whole company, telling them that they're in the wrong. Okay, here we are. Here's the decision we have to make. Because I've seen a lot of people whose opinions fall on both sides as to what the right answer is. Do we drop Treatwell? Do we denounce Permit Patty, Allison? Do we tell her to get out of the community? Or do we acknowledge that she made a mistake and her whole life and career don't necessarily need to end because of this? I've seen great arguments on both sides. I posted this question to some of my friends, and I'm in this thing called the Podcast Builders League, group podcasters on Facebook, and I said, hey, I'm doing this episode tonight. If anybody has questions they want to, or if anybody has an opinion that they want to throw onto this, feel free. Now, I told people to tag their podcast so I could, it was basically the consent I needed to share their opinion. The only one that did was this guy, Corey, who is, I've listened to his podcast, pretty good. It's called From the Canopy. And Corey basically goes on to say that, why'd she call the cops? If it was a noise violation, why didn't she just go down there and tell him to cool it? He did say something that I really liked, though. He said, I don't know what her ultimate intentions were or what's in her heart, but we can't act like there isn't a history of quote-unquote calling the police being weaponized against black folks. And that's real. That's what I'm trying to say here, is that there is, in the world right now, in the life that we're living in 2018, calling the cops on black folks for pretty much no reason has become a real thing that people are doing. We all remember the barbecue situation. Good old Barbecue Becky. Now we got Permit Patty. Thanks, Twitter. I love you and your lingo. So the conversation on this Facebook thread sort of goes on to say that, okay, she made a mistake. It's not great. But how far do we need to push this? how much do we need to do to this woman before we say, all right, have you learned your lesson? And that's a really important question. And that, I think, is where the cannabis community has a really amazing opportunity to define the way that these conflicts can be handled in the future. Because if our industry and our community can do it, maybe other people can learn from the stoners and realize that we really do have the right mindset. Because that's the thing about weed, man. It's supposed to be for everybody, and it's supposed to help you. So let's try and help. Let's figure out where we need to be right now. Here's my opinion. I think that the mistake has been corrected. Treatwell has taken a major hit. They have been dropped from a lot of stores. Yada, yada, yada. Allison Ettle, Kettle, Fettle, what was her last name? Allison something. Allison. See how prepared I was for this episode? I told you I was running behind. Oh gosh, is it not in this one? Allison Ettle. There is no consonant at the front. That's why I struggled so bad. Allison Ettle has taken a pretty big hit herself. She said she's gotten some hate mail and some death threats, which does not surprise me. That, I think, is a little bit too much. I think we could get away from this whole death threats thing as a society. Everybody just needs to chill a little bit. Nobody's got to die. But she's taken a big hit. She stepped down as the CEO from her company. Yeah. Now, the dispensaries have done a great job of pushing the cash into corners that it needs to be pushed in and separating themselves from the brand and delivering that big blow to the company. All of these things have been done. Allison Ettle has apologized. Whether that apology was sincere or not, you leave that up to debate. But I think that we have moved past this point of, I think people have learned a lesson here. I think the right things have been done. The right actions have been taken. I think now we can move forward from this and as a community say, okay, Treatwell, you've distanced yourself from your former CEO, you've given a statement, you've moved forward. I think that we can continue to use Treatwell products. That's my personal opinion. I think that the dispensaries who dropped them did a really great job. I think that was a good call, but I think that you can probably pick them back up now if you want. And I think that at this point, it is probably pretty safe to say that Allison Ettle has learned her lesson from this whole situation. I know that I saw some more general details about possible illegality in her sales methods and stuff like that. Everything that I could find was pretty unconfirmed and pretty wishy-washy as far as evidence goes. I'm not saying that isn't true, so my opinions on this may change, but as of date of recording, 6/27/18, it seems like this is kind of her first infraction as far as being a real jerk goes. So she's taken a huge hit financially, and her reputation has taken a huge hit, and she's taken a big hit. I think that we can let her go, and if she comes back around into the community, we can probably give her a second chance. That's my opinion. I'm putting it out there. Because I think if we as a community can decide that, yes, what she did was wrong, yes, it's not cool for white people to, basically flaunt their ability to sell weed, because it's white people legal. If we can say that there was no reason that the cop should have been called on this girl, whether it was for a noise violation because that could have been handled better, or if it was because she was black, or even if she never actually called the cops, because just pretending to call the cops on an 8-year-old kid is pretty messed up. You're just trying to scare a kid by threatening to call the cops on him. It's not cool. So, if we can acknowledge all of those things, and we can say, yes, okay, you messed up, you've learned your lesson now, we'll give you a second chance. I think we can set a really great example for the other communities of the world who are dealing with this same situation. I don't know if this made sense to anybody. I guess I just really needed to get my opinion out there about it. I'm sorry if it was super rambly, or if it didn't make a lot of sense. But I've just really been thinking a lot about this, man, because like this is a white woman calling the cops on a black kid for no reason whatsoever, and it just doesn't make sense to me. It kind of goes back to my racism episode that I did. It was like episode 8. It was during the glass blunt extravaganza. Um, it's just gosh. There's a lot to wonder about why she called the cops. But as much as it pains me to say it, we've pretty much wrecked this woman. Not that that's a bad thing, but how long do we need to keep doing it? You know? Or can we as a community say, yeah, we're, you know what, we're stoners and we're a little more open-minded than you, and we're okay with giving people a second chance and offering forgiveness. It's just hard because what she did could really set the cannabis industry back. If other business owners come out to be this way, if this is really a thing in the cannabis community that is just as big a problem in our world as it is in the rest of the world, that's not great, and we're up against a big wall there. Because cannabis has made a lot of steps forward. The community, the industry is really moving forward in the world. Canada just legalized. We're looking at other states probably going to legalize in November. Things are looking really good over in Michigan right now. Like, there's a lot of good happening in the world in the cannabis industry, and situations like this are what's going to push us back and what's going to give people a big reason to say no, weed shouldn't be legal, because look at the problems they're causing. And that sucks. And that's kind of where I see this situation, where it's the first major issue we've had in 2018 at least that can really come down to this conversation of basically, was it racist? And it scares me for the industry, because depending on what decision people make depends on how the rest of the world ends up seeing us and seeing the community. And in this time when we so desperately need to prove that the cannabis community is the best community and is happy and cheerful and loving and caring, and like that we are we as a community are far enough along that our opinions and our actions and our beliefs are worth noting to others. Like, in a world where we need to prove that so that we can move this community forward, here we are with one person going way far out of their way to set it all back. I don't know. It's just been in my head a lot lately. I'm going to take another hit of this because I've kind of just lost track of this conversation. So, cheers, friends. I know this was a weird episode. I know it was kind of all over the place. I'm really curious to listen to this one back. I really don't know what it's going to sound like. We'll see. I just didn't really have anything to talk about, and I've been sort of struggling lately to remain motivated to keep up with things. I'm just swamped at work. So I've had a lot of thoughts and a lot of feelings about this topic, and I just didn't really know how to put it all into words. And I'm super exhausted, and I'm super high now on a sativa, so my brain just didn't really get the process across, I think, as well as I wanted it to, but we'll see. I always listen back to these sober, which is a really fun experience, so I'll check this out later, and, well, not until after it's published, but I'll check it out and see, and maybe there will be a Patty part 2, but thanks for hanging along for this whole ride. I appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed it. And all of my episodes are very different. If this episode was not for you, thanks for listening the whole way through anyway. Check out one of my other episodes. All of them are different. I just get high and talk, though, so that's always the same. If it's my voice you don't like, find another podcast. But thanks for your time anyway. I appreciate the download. My name is GLDLX. I am the host of this disaster, and you can find me on Instagram at Sesh Cast. You can always find my website, as junky as it may be, as well as seshcast.libsyn.com. I really want to do more with that. I just don't have time. It's on the list though. If you've got friends you think might be into this podcast, feel free to tell them about it. I always appreciate it and grow this weird little bubble of people that we have. And you can drop me an iTunes review if you want to, because I think that's a thing that helps podcasts, although I don't totally understand whether it does or whether it doesn't, because that, like all things, depends on what article you read. I hope you're having an awesome day or night or, whatever it is. And I hope that you'll swing back on through the next podcast. If you have any opinions on this whole permit patty situation, feel free to drop them on my Instagram post. Start a conversation over there. I'll mod it a little bit. If you're being a real jerk, I might take you off. But other than that, man, just share your opinion. I'm curious. Let it out. Just let me know. And if you don't have an opinion on this permit patty thing, I would encourage you to maybe form one, because I think we are in a really interesting situation with this. But I think that's all I have, so I'm going to go ahead and bounce. I'm going to hit this one more time, and I'll let you go. Cheers. My name is GLDLX. This has been Sesh Cast. Thank you so much for listening.